and that if a purely animal diet were useful in the latter disease, a combination of animal food with such vegetable diet as contained neither sugar nor starch might serve to arrest the undue formation of fat. Harvey prescribed the regimen to Banting, who began dieting in August 1862. He ate 3 meals a day of meat, fish, or game, usually 5 or 6 ounces at a meal, with an ounce or 2 of stale toast or cooked fruit on the side. He had his evening tea with a few more ounces of fruit or toast. He scrupulously avoided any other food that might contain either sugar or starch, in particular bread, milk, beer, sweets, and potatoes. Despite a considerable allowance of alcohol in Banting's regimen, 4 or 5 glasses of wine each day, a cordial every morning, and an evening tumbler of gin, whiskey, or brandy, Banting dropped 35 pounds by the following May and 50 pounds by early 1864. I have not felt better in health than now for the last 26 years, he wrote. My other bodily ailments have become mere matters of history. We know this because Banting published a 16-page pamphlet describing his dietary experience in 1863, Letter on Corpulence, addressed to the public, promptly launching the first popular diet craze, known farther and wider than Banting could have imagined, as Bantingism. His Letter on Corpulence was widely translated and sold particularly well in the United States, Germany, Austria, and France, where, according to the British Medical Journal, the Emperor of the French is trying the Banting system and is said to have already profited greatly thereby. Within a year, Banting had entered the English language as a verb meaning to diet. If he is gouty, obese, and nervous, we strongly recommend him to bant, suggested the Pall Mall Gazette in June 1865. The medical community of Banting's day didn't quite know what to make of him or his diet. Correspondents to the British Medical Journal seemed occasionally open-minded, albeit suitably skeptical. A formal paper was presented on the efficacy and safety of Banting's diet at the 1864 meeting of the British Medical Association. Others did what members of established societies often do when confronted with a radical new concept. They attacked both the message and the messenger. The editors of The Lancet, which is to the BMJ what Newsweek is to Time, were particularly ruthless. First, they insisted that Banting's diet was old news, which it was, although Banting never claimed otherwise. The medical literature, wrote The Lancet, is tolerably complete and supplies abundant evidence that all which Mr. Banting advises has been written over and over again. Banting responded that this might well have been so, but it was news to him and other corpulent individuals. In fact, Banting properly acknowledged his medical advisor, Harvey, and in later editions of his pamphlet, he apologized for not being familiar with the 3 Frenchmen who probably should have gotten credit: Claude Bernard, Jean Nantelme Brillat-Savarin, and Jean-François Dancel. Banting neglected to mention his countrymen Alfred William Moore and John Harvey, who published treatises on similar meaty, starch-free diets in 1860 and 1861, respectively. Brillat-Savarin had been a lawyer and gourmand who wrote what may be the single most famous book ever written about food, The Physiology of Taste, first published in 1825. In it, Brillat-Savarin claimed that he could easily identify the cause of obesity after 30 years of talking with one fat or particularly fat individual after another who proclaimed the joys of bread, rice, and potatoes. He added that the effects of this intake were exacerbated when sugar was consumed as well. His recommended reducing diet, not surprisingly, was more or less rigid abstinence from everything that is starchy or floury.